Welcome. In this part 2 of the video, we are going to look at the second chapter from first year BA LLB syllabus for law and literature as per Mumbai University. We're going to summarize Joseph Andrew by Henry Fielding. So in this is actually chapter 2 of this novel and chapter 3 we are covering from this novel. So let's start with the video. In chapter 2, a heated discussion takes place between Mr. Abraham Adams, the clergyman, and Lady Booby, a noblewoman. Lady Booby expresses her disapproval of Joseph Andrews' plans to marry Fanny, who had been raised in her household. She accuses Joseph of being unworthy, calling him a vagabond, and fearing that his marriage to Fanny would bring a new burden to the parish, particularly with the poor that would be born from their union. Mr. Adams, however, defends Joseph and Fanny, affirming their good character and the necessity of allowing them to marry despite their poverty. Lady Booby insists that Mr. Adams seizes the publication of the marriage bans, threatening to have him dismissed from his clerical duties. She argues that the poor already overrun the parish and refuses to allow any more indigent families to settle. Mr. Adams, steadfast in his beliefs, responds that he will act according to the law and his conscience, regardless of Lady Booby's commands. Their argument culminates in Mr. Adams leaving, but not before reaffirming his duty to the people. In chapter 3, it transitions to another conversation between Lady Booby and Lawyer Scout, a local unscrupulous lawyer. The lady continues to express her desire to prevent Joseph and Fanny from marrying, and she accuses Lawyer Scout of interfering with her servants. Though Scout initially downplays his role, Lady Booby insists on the marriage being blocked. Scout, an opportunist, offers legal solutions to support the marriage, citing differences between settlement in law and settlement in fact. He also suggests using the local justice frolic to secure Joseph's removal from the parish. Lady Booby, more concerned with preventing the marriage than any legal nuances, is convinced by Scout's promises. The chapter ends with Scout leaving to pursue the matter further, as Lady Booby remains determined to rid the parish of both Joseph and Fanny. Overall, these chapters highlight themes of class distinction, the role of duty versus personal desires, and the tension between authoritative figures and those they seek to control. Through the conversations, Fielding presents both Lady Booby's arrogance and the moral integrity of Mr. Adams, while also introducing Lawyer Scout's manipulative character, which serves as a criticism of opportunistic legal practices. Let's go into the detailed character sketch of important characters in Joseph Andrews by Henry Fielding. We'll also look at not only the character sketch but also critically evaluate these character sketches. So we are combining both of them together in this video. Mr. Abraham Adams, we'll look at his character sketch. Mr. Abraham Adams is a well-meaning, humble and principled clergyman. He's a parson. He represents the ideal of moral integrity and personal duty. His primary role in these chapters is to advocate for the rights of Joseph Andrews and Fanny, as he believes strongly in the righteousness of their union despite their lower social standing. He is depicted as a man who will stand up for what is right, regardless of personal consequences. His personal qualities are noble, and he maintains a devout belief in his spiritual responsibilities. In the dialogue with Lady Booby, Adams remains respectful yet firm, showcasing his dedication to his moral values and his loyalty to those under his care. Adams is earnest and often quite naive. especially when dealing with those in positions of power. His character reflects the honest, albeit somewhat misguided faith that he places in human goodness, which contrasts sharply with the moral corruption around him. Critical evaluation: Adam's steadfast nature and commitment to his conscience make him a sympathetic character, but his inability to navigate the complexities of society's social hierarchies and power dynamics render him somewhat impractical. His conversations with Lady Booby reveal that his idealism may limit his understanding of the less than moral behaviors of those in high ranks. He is more gullible when it comes to legal and social affairs, often falling into a trap laid by people like Scout and Lady Booby. Nevertheless, Adams can be seen as a moral compass in the narrative whose personal integrity is a refreshing contrast to the self-serving attitudes of other characters. Let's look at the character of Lady Booby with critical evaluation. Character sketch: Lady Booby is an embodiment of aristocratic pride and a sense of entitlement. She is wealthy, arrogant, and class conscious, believing that her position entitles her to dictate the lives of those beneath her. She holds a dismissive and condescending attitude towards Joseph Andrews and Fanny, and she views them as social inferiors. Throughout these chapters, she focuses on maintaining her social standing and sees the marriage between Joseph and Fanny as a threat to her perception of control. Her behavior also hints at underlying jealousy and insecurity, especially in her reactions to Fanny, whom she disparages. The way Lady Booby reacts to Fanny's beauty, even while admitting that it could be advantageous to the parish, betrays a fear of losing control over her domain. Critical evaluation of Lady Booby: Lady Booby's character is designed to represent the hypocrisy and moral corruption of the upper class. Despite her wealth and position, she is a deeply flawed individual, prioritizing personal conveniences over ethical principles. Her willingness to dismiss a marriage based on her own interests rather than an actual moral wrongdoings on the part of Joseph or Fanny reveals her as a tyrannical figure, using her position to impose her will. Fielding critiques the aristocracy through her character, highlighting the callousness that often accompanies wealth and social status. She contrasts with Adams in every way. While he is motivated by morality and duty, she is driven by self-interest and snobbery. Next, let's look at Joseph Andrew. Although Joseph Andrews is not the focal point of these two chapters, his presence looms over the dialogue. He is honest, virtuous, and self-respecting, qualities which Adams defends when speaking to Lady Booby. His relationship with Fanny is portrayed as pure and genuine, making him a sympathetic character who stands in stark contrast to the self-serving individuals around him. Joseph's character can be described as naive, particularly in the way he interacts with the higher social echelons. He lacks the cynicism that marks many of the more powerful characters, which both endears him to the reader and places him in a precarious situations. Fanny. Fanny's role is central in the narrative, but in these chapters she is largely discussed by others. She is described as a beautiful and virtuous young woman, yet Lady Booby disparages her, primarily due to her lower social class. Fanny is innocent and uncomplicated, serving as the object of both Joseph's love and Lady Booby's disdain. Her beauty becomes the focal point for much of the social friction in the story, representing the tensions between class and virtue. Though she doesn't speak much in these chapters, Fanny's innocence and moral purity serve as a foil to the more corrupt and self-serving characters around her. Her love for Joseph and her willingness to marry him despite their poverty speak to her independence and strength of character. Lawyer Scout. Character sketch. Lawyer Scout is a character who embodies the moral decay of the lower legal and administrative classes. He is manipulative, self-serving, self-serving opportunist who uses his limited knowledge of the law to exploit situations for personal gain. When speaking with Lady Booby, he eagerly assists her in finding a way to block Joseph and Fanny's marriage, suggesting legal loopholes and connections to local authority figures like Justice Frolic. His lack of professional ethics is evident as he attempts to bend the law to fit Lady Booby's wishes. Critical evaluation. Scout is portrayed as an unscrupulous character whose lack of professional integrity marks him as a scoundrel. He represents the dangers of unregulated or misused legal power, someone who uses the law for personal advantage rather than justice. His relationship with Lady Booby, although slightly humorous in its psychopathic nature, highlights the manipulation of power for selfish ends. Fielding's characterization of Scout critiques the legal profession, portraying him as a mockery of what the law should represent, that is, justice and fairness. Let us look at the critical evaluation of Joseph Andrews by Henry Fielding. In these chapters of Joseph Andrews, Fielding continues to explore social hierarchy, morality, and human nature through his sharp satire and witty dialogue. The scene between Mr. Adams, Lady Booby, and Lawyer Scout reveal the stark contrast between the noble ideal of virtue and the moral corruption pervasive in the higher social ranks. These chapters deepen the reader's understanding of the class dynamics and social stratification that serve as central themes throughout the novel. First, moral and social critique. Fielding's treatment of Lady Booby and Lawyer Scout presents a pointed critique of the aristocracy and legal institutions. Lady Booby, a woman of high social standing, embodies the arrogance, selfishness, and moral indifference that characterize the upper class in the novel. Her determination to prevent Joseph and Fanny's marriage, based solely on their social standing, showcases her disregard for personal virtue in favor of preserving her own power and status. The words in bold are the important words which needs to be remembered. Her insistence that Joseph is a vagabond and Fanny is a slut highlights the hypocrisy of her position as she dismisses the moral goodness of these characters solely due to their low class status. Lady Booby's attitude also reveals the gendered aspect of her moral policing. She is far more concerned with Fanny's beauty and forwardness than with any actual transgression. Her treatment of Fanny exposes the patriarchal social norms where women's virtue is often equated with their appearance and behavior, but only within the narrow confines of aristocratic expectations. Meanwhile, Lawyer Scout, a parasitic figure who represents the unscrupulousness of the lower legal class, adds another layer to Fielding's criticism. He is quick to manipulate the law for personal gain, showing how legal authority can be used for selfish purposes rather than justice. Fielding presents Scout as a scoundrel who exploits both the law and his relationship with Lady Booby to further his own interests. Through Scout's actions, Fielding highlights the inefficiency and corruption of both legal and social systems, where those with power are able to shape the law to serve their personal agendas. Second, the theme of social class and power. One of the most notable features of these chapters is the exploration of the power dynamics between social classes. Mr. Adams, though a clergyman and someone who should hold moral authority, is completely powerless when it comes to challenging Lady Booby's desires. His naivety and innocence, while admirable, make him a vulnerable figure in the face of aristocratic authority. Despite his moral superiority, he is unable to sway Lady Booby from her decision to prevent Joseph and Fanny's marriage, showing how class distinctions often render true justice or virtue ineffective. Adams' willingness to stand up for what he believes in, even in the face of opposition from those in power, is a noble trait. However, his idealism seems out of place in a world dominated by wealth, influence, and corruption. This contrast between Adams' spiritual integrity and the worldly corruption around him further reinforces the novel's satirical tone, portraying the disjunction between moral purity and the corrupting influence of the social rank. Third, the comedy of human behavior. Fielding's humor shines through in these chapters, especially in the interactions between Mr. Adams and Lady Booby. The dialogues are full of satirical jabs at the absurdity of human nature, as characters like Lady Booby display their self serving attitudes in exaggerated forms. Mr. Adams' attempts at polite defense of Joseph and Fanny, coupled with his clumsy naivety, provide a comedic contrast to the haughty and often ridiculous behavior of the aristocrats around him. For instance, Adams' serious, even pompous, defense of Fanny's beauty when he protests that she is the handsomest woman is both earnest and comedic because it contrasts with the materialistic and shallow criticism Lady Booby offers in response. Lady Booby's over the top rejection of Fanny's beauty, calling it ridiculous, underscores the absurdity of the value placed on physical appearance in aristocratic circles, where personal worth is often judged by superficial standards. Fielding's use of absurdity in dialogue allows him to expose the flaws of his character while also providing humor for the reader. Narrative voice and satire. Fielding's use of the third person omniscient narrator allows him to subtly criticize and mock the characters in the story. The narrator often adds layers of irony to the scenes, showing a deeper awareness of the moral contradictions at play. Through the narrator's sharp observations, the reader is guided to see the discrepancy between the characters' outward actions and their true motivations. For example, the narrator's description of Lawyer Scout as scoundrel who is ignorant of the law but still willing to manipulate it for personal gain presents a sharp critic of self-proclaimed experts who, without any formal qualification, manage to manipulate others for personal gain. This type of satire is central to the novel, as Fielding uses it to undermine societal institutions that are supposed to uphold justice but are instead portrayed as corrupt or ineffective. Fifth, the role of virtue in marriage. In these chapters, marriage is depicted as a social institution that is often influenced by factors other than love or virtue. Lady Booby's refusal to allow Joseph and Fanny to marry, despite their mutual affection, shows how society often privileges class and status over personal happiness. In contrast, Adam's belief in the moral goodness of the couple's union demonstrates his commitment to the idea that virtue and love should be true foundation of marriage rather than wealth or social position. The fact that Joseph and Fanny's union is being thwarted by the aristocratic elite reflects the moral tensions between the different social classes in the novel, where the upper class holds power over the lower class and can manipulate personal relationships for their own benefit. Let's look at the 10 most important quotes between Lady Booby and Parson Adams and Lady Booby with Lawyer Scout. Madam, If your ladyship will but hear me speak, I protest. I never heard any harm of Mr. Joseph Andrews. If I had, I should have corrected him for it. It was said by Parson Adams to Lady Booby. Parson Adam defends Joseph to Lady Booby, denying any knowledge of his supposed faults, asserting his commitment to correcting wrongdoings if he had ever witnessed it. Second, I assure your ladyship I have as good an opinion of her, that is of Fanny, as your ladyship yourself or any other can have. It was said by Parson Adams to Lady Booby. Adam vouches for Fanny's character, insisting she is virtuous and worthy of Lady Booby's respect. Third quote. Madam, your ladyship is offended with me. I protest without any reason. Parson Adam says to Lady Booby. Adam tries to clarify that Lady Booby's anger toward him is unfounded, as he believes his actions were justified. Quote number 4. This couple were desirous to consummate long ago, and I dissuaded them from it. Nay, I may venture to say, I believe I was the sole cause of their delaying it. Once again, Parson Adams to Lady Booby. Adam explains that Joseph and Fanny had wanted to marry earlier, but he persuaded them to wait, showing his role in their delayed marriage. Fifth quote. Madam, if any one puts in a sufficient caution and assigns a proper reason against them, I am willing to surcease. Parson Adam speaks to Lady Booby. Adam offers to stop publishing the marriage bans if someone presents a valid reason, showing his adherence to rules while maintaining his moral integrity. Quote number 6. God forbid there should be any such law. The poor have little share enough of this world already. It would be barbarous indeed to deny them the common privileges and innocent enjoyments which nature indulges to the animal creation. Parson Adams says to Lady Booby. Adams passionately defends the right of the poor, including Joseph and Fanny, to marry, contrasting the inherent dignity of all humans with Lady Booby's prejudice. Quote number 7. Madam, I know not what your ladyship means by the terms master and service. Parson Adam says to Lady Booby. Adam responds to Lady Booby's threat to have him dismissed, asserting his independence from the worldly authorities she represents. Quote number 8. I am in the service of a master who will never discard me for doing my duty. Parson Adams to Lady Booby. Adam boldly declares that he serves a higher moral authority, that is God, and would not fear Lady Booby's threat to remove him from the parish. Quote number 9. At least my family as well as myself have hands, and he will prosper. I doubt not our endeavours to get our bread honestly with them. Parson Adam says to Lady Booby. Adam defends his family's ability to sustain themselves honestly, emphasizing that his faith in self-reliance and moral integrity. Quote number 10. I protest I shall enter into no person's doors against their will, but I am assured when you have inquired further into this matter, you will applaud, not blame my proceedings. Parson Adams says to Lady Booby. Adams respectfully asserts that upon further investigation, Lady Booby will recognize the righteousness of his actions. Now let us look at the 10 quotes between Lady Booby and Lawyer Scout. I am resolved to have no discarded servants of mine settled here. Lawyer Scout. Lady Booby speaks to this was said by Lady Booby to Lawyer Scout. This is the reverse way. Read it as the reverse way. Lady Booby expresses Scout expresses his loyalty to Lady Booby and his desire to prevent any unwanted servants like Joseph from settling in the parish. Sorry, this is the context is different. We have to read it as Lady Booby desires to prevent any unwanted servants of hers from getting married and settling in the parish to lawyer Scout. Read it in that way. If she sent to 100 lawyers, not one or all of them could alter the law. Lawyer Scout tells Lady Booby, actually doesn't tell her, he thinks in his mind. Scout assures Lady Booby that no lawyer could change the law of settlement, no matter how many she consulted, showcasing his legal confidence. Actually does not assure, he thinks this in his mind. So take it as that. The utmost that was in the power of a lawyer was to prevent the laws taking effect, and that I myself could do for your ladyship as well as any other. Lawyer Scott speaks to Lady Booby. Scout tells Lady Booby that though the law cannot be changed, he can work to prevent its implementation, indicating his ability to manipulate legal matters. Quote number 4. If we can prove in evidence that he is not settled in fact, it is another matter. Lawyer Scott tells Lady Booby. Scout offers to help Lady Booby to prove that Joseph's settlement is invalid, showcasing his opportunism in exploiting legal loopholes. Quote number 5. Your ladyship is very much in the right. Lawyer Scout tells Lady Booby. Scout flatters Lady Booby, agreeing with her without question, showing his servile and self-interested nature. Sixth quote. I make no doubt of prevailing with him, that is Parson Adams. His only objection is doubtless that he shall lose his fees. Lawyer Scout tells Lady Booby. Scout confidently predicts that he can manipulate Adams into compliance, cynically suggesting that Adams will be swayed by money. Seventh quote. Your ladyship is pleased to be merry. This can come in the exam. Lawyer Scout tells Lady Booby. Scout acknowledges Lady Booby's sarcasm about Fanny's beauty, highlighting his subservient attitude and willingness to agree with her, even in jest, that is, in joking manner. We have one sure card, which is to carry him before Justice Frolic, who, upon hearing your ladyship's name, will commit him without any further questions. Lawyer Scout tells Lady Booby. Scout suggests using Lady Booby's influence to manipulate Justice Frolic and ensure Joseph's punishment, revealing his corrupt and exploitative nature. Quote number 9. What I said to Mr. Adams was on a supposition that he was settled in fact. Lawyer Scout speaks to Lady Booby. Scout explains that his earlier statement about Joseph's settlement was hypothetical, trying to cover up any inconsistencies in his previous advice. Quote number 10. I know some justices who think as much of committing a man to Bridewell as his lordship at size would of hanging him. Lawyer Scout tells Lady Booby. Scout describes Justice Frolic's extreme behavior, demonstrating the ease with which the law can be manipulated for personal or political gain. Thank you very much for listening to this video. Do consider sharing the link with your college group so others can also be benefited. Thank you very much, and also keep checking the community tab where I'm posting in the notes regularly. Don't forget to check the community tab, that's very important, and share the video link with your friends. Thank you very much.